there is a figure, now almost mythological, who has crossed the centuries without ever going out of style, untouched by the passage of time. A man who spoke to the future, in an era when the world was not yet ready to understand him. And perhaps it still isn't today. A painter, an engineer, an inventor, a scientist, an absolute genius, and much more. But also, and perhaps above all, a great and extraordinary philosopher. His name was Leonardo da Vinci, born on April 15, 1452, near Florence, the illegitimate son of a notary and a peasant woman. Leonardo came into the world far from the schools and books of the learned, but from the very beginning, his teacher was the world itself. Nature, his first school, the water flowing in the streams, the leaves moving in the wind, the bodies of animals, the ever-changing sky. Everything spoke, and he listened with infinite curiosity and dedication. From a young age, he displayed a marvelous obsession to understand, not to accumulate facts, but to penetrate the essence of things. Whether it was painting a human face or studying the flight of birds, Leonardo sought the same thing in an almost obsessive way: the truth. For him, art was not separate from science, anatomy was not distant from beauty, and the movement of rivers was not disconnected from poetry. He wrote, "All our knowledge begins with the senses." Not everyone knows that the Florentine genius loved to conduct experiments, some of them quite bizarre. It is said that on several occasions he tried to imitate the flight of birds by building mechanical wings, which he tested in secret in the fields outside Florence. Some thought he was a magician, others a madman. But no one could deny that his gaze was always elsewhere, toward what did not yet exist. These stories, more anecdotes than certainties, nevertheless tell us one clear thing. For him, knowledge was never just an idea, was action, play, experiment, risk. And it was precisely through the senses that he sought knowledge. Leonardo did not trust inherited words. He was wary of authorities, doctrines, and dogmas. He wanted to see with his own eyes, to experiment with his own hands. His philosophy was concrete, yet profoundly deep. He did not take refuge in abstract concepts. He found in the body, in flesh, in the earth, the signs of the invisible. And he loved to observe, to lose himself in the creations of the universe. He would scrutinize the wings of a dragonfly, the curves of a mussel, the turbulence of water in a glass, and transform them into theories. In his gaze, everything became worthy of study. There were no things too small or too great. Every fragment of reality was a world unto itself. Leonardo believed that man should learn from nature, not dominate it. In his notebooks, he recorded everything: sketches, formulas, reflections, calculations, questions. Every page seemed like a silent dialogue between him and the mystery. He wanted to know how a heart works, why clouds move, what keeps a body in flight balanced. And that's how he created impossible machines, anticipated concepts that would only become reality centuries later: the helicopter, the submarine, the bicycle, just a few examples. But none of his projects existed for their own sake. They were all part of a spiritual attempt to understand how the universe holds together. Yet Leonardo was not only a man of intellect, he was also a man of heart and spirit. In his most famous works, The Virgin of the Rocks, The Last Supper, The Mona Lisa, there is a profound sense of silence, of mystery, of anticipation. His faces are not just faces, they are souls. For him, art was a mirror of inner life. The painter was not supposed to imitate nature, but to reveal its essence. And indeed, his figures seem to think. They appear to be caught in a moment when something inside them is changing, as if they are telling us that every instant is a threshold, that even in the everyday, in the smallest gesture, there is a secret to be grasped. Leonardo wrote a great deal, even though he published little. It was as if he knew that what he was searching for could not truly be expressed, that the greatest truth cannot be communicated, but only suggested, only shown. Perhaps for this reason, he wrote backwards, from right to left, as if in a mirror. Not to hide himself, but to emphasize that knowledge requires effort, that it must be earned, not given away. And yet, Despite his genius, he was often restless. He would start projects that he never finished. He moved from city to city, from Florence to Milan, from Rome to France, working for princes, popes, and kings, or for no one in particular except himself. He was ahead of his time, too curious to settle, too free to submit. He used to say, "Those who think little err much," and his mind never stopped working. At the end of his life, Leonardo was in France, a guest of King Francis I. He no longer painted much, his hand was unsteady, but his mind was still sharp. It is said that he died in the king's arms, but rather than dying, it seems he simply dissolved into the mystery he had always pursued. At the end of his life, he said, "Just as a well-spent day brings happy sleep, so a well-used life brings a happy death." A serene reflection on death as the natural fulfillment of a life lived to the fullest further proved that his mind went far beyond material and tangible disciplines. In his will, he left behind little wealth, but his true legacy was not material, it was a new vision of the world. Leonardo da Vinci teaches us that knowledge is not about possession, but about wonder, that to love and to know does not mean to control, but to listen. He reminds us that intelligence is not separate from sensitivity, that science and art are not enemies, but sisters who speak the same language. His philosophy is an invitation to look at the world with new eyes, to never stop asking questions, to be curious, to not be afraid of what we do not understand, and to cultivate critical thinking. Because, as he wrote, the more one knows, the more one doubts. Leonardo was a complete man, not perfect but whole. He thought like a scientist, felt like an artist, lived like a researcher. And today, in our hectic times, where everything is consumed and forgotten, we need his perspective more than ever. A perspective that looks at the world not to judge it, but to understand it. One that seeks harmony, not dominance. One that sees in everything, even the simplest thing, traces of a deeper order. Leonardo da Vinci was not just a genius, he was a soul on a journey. His greatest legacy is not the extraordinary paintings, the futuristic inventions, the indecipherable codes, the incredible discoveries, or his visionary works, but rather the possibility of once again looking at reality and the world with wonder, of living with attentive eyes, an open mind, and a vibrant heart.